Hello, guys. It's the NW Sportscast. We are here to talk about our favorite baseball team, the Seattle
Ah,
Mariners. And as the fifth largest following Mariners podcast, I
wow.
believe, I think it's important for us to get our words
Tough.
of wisdom
Yeah,
out.
tough.
So we'll do more of reviewing players and stats and that kind of stuff later on in the upcoming weeks. But for today, we're going to look at the bigger picture of just what went wrong this season and how the Mariners went from a playoff team that was winning a playoff series to a team that didn't make it. Drew, I want your immediate reaction to the end of the season.
My immediate reaction is really it's very hard to pinpoint one thing. I'll give you my one thing in a little bit, but there are so many different factors that went into the season not going the way you expected it. You have injuries galore, and the pitching side, especially, you have big pieces like Julio Rodriguez, like Eugenio Suarez, like Cal Raleigh, Teo, who are good baseball players, just not coming up in clutch moments. You have guys like Ty France, who took a very steep drop from last year to this year. Guys like Colton Wong that took a huge drop from last year to this year. Um, and then you have the big overarching thing, which I think really it comes down to is Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander last offseason. They don't get the job done. I said coming into the season, I didn't feel too good about their offseason moves. Yes, you had Colton Wong, but although he was not meant to be this bad whatsoever. I was a little suspect going into it with Colton Wong. Uh, Pitching, you have to rely on guys like Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. Look, I told Levi this at the start of the season, and he told me the same thing. We were not going to get as lucky as we did in 2022 as we were going to get in 2023, with pitching health, and that for sure happened. You had to rely on Wu to pitch way too many innings this year, Miller to pitch way too many innings this year, and they were tired at the end of the season. Two of your five guys really couldn't pitch for you in big spots, and Luis Castillo just couldn't figure it out either. So, well, for me, it all comes back to the Mariners didn't make any huge moves in the offseason, in my opinion, and that led them to force things at the trade deadline with Paul Sewald, which they wouldn't have to trade Paul Sewald if they did what they needed to do in the offseason. So again, lots of factors going into this. The players have some blame. Scott Service will take some blame. The front office will take some blame. Even the owners definitely deserve blame. But when I have to put on one thing, I'll put on last year's offseason.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that Colton Wong trade, I think it all goes back to that because you look at Colton Wong was a trade. We traded Jesse Winker for Colton Wong. I thought it was smart to get rid of Winker because he was a clubhouse nuisance. He was just not bringing positivity, and he ended up being terrible this year. So I'm glad we got rid of him. But when we traded him for Wong, I said this is a mistake. Colton Wong last season, if you look at the stats, he was an MVP candidate if he only was playing against the Reds and the Pirates, who had two of the worst pitching staffs in baseball last year. Against every other team, Colton Wong was a below average second baseman. He comes to the Mariners. You know how many games he played against the Reds and the Pirates this year? Three. He played 3 games against the Pirates. He was gone by the time we played the Reds. Every other game, he had to play real pitching staffs. And what happened? He sucked.
Yeah.
If we had just had a competent second baseman, like a competent second, if we had had a 220 batting average instead of
I mean, yeah.
180, that probably gives you maybe one or two more wins, which doesn't seem like a lot, but we missed the playoffs by 1 win. But also B, it doesn't make you trade Paul Sewald to get Josh Rojas, which also ends up costing you a couple of wins down the stretch
Yeah.
because Sewald not being there, the bullpen imploded. So you're looking at just because of Colton Wong, how bad he was, that could have ended up costing you like 4 wins. And 4 wins is the difference between seventh place and this
And the
number
first round bye.
two and the number 2 seed. Like
2 wins. 2 wins is the difference between
two
that.
wins. Yes, exactly. 2 wins
You
is the
need two wins.
difference.
So again, that's why it's hard for me to get super mad because yes, did we blow it? Yeah. But also, like, I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, in 100, in 160 odd amount of games, you're gonna have some games that are just gonna be decided by some basic factors of luck. And it is very easy to argue that the Mariners, with, you know, in an alternate universe, won the AL West this year, and they could have played the exact same and won the AL West, and we'd be having a completely different conversation. But hey, that's not how it happened. And at the end of the day, you gotta take responsibility for what your team does. Levi, your opinion on this was pretty much like mine, just a little bit more hyper focused on the Colton Wong trade. I would agree with that, but also, like, I mean, you got to look at it like first base below average, second base below average, third base below average, left field below average, right field average, and then you got an above average starting pit, you got above average rotation, an above average center field, and above average shortstop, and that's about it. So when you look at it that way, it's hard for me to just put blame on the second base, but I see where you're going at.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There are definitely positions that we're lacking. I think when you think about the core of this team, I really see it as an 8-player core, which is good. I mean, we have a top 5 center fielder, we have a top 10 shortstop, and then we have a top. I honestly think Cal Raleigh is a top 5 catcher. So you have 3 position players who are very good, and then you have 3 pitchers in Castillo, Kirby, and Gilbert who are all very, very good. And then you have 2 young bullpen guys who I'll admit I get very frustrated with Matt Brash and occasionally also with Munoz, but they have unlimited potential. So
Yeah,
those 8, you're like, okay, we have 8 guys who look like they are potentially going to be stars for a while.
yeah.
Ty France going into this season, he was part of that group. I think he's not in that group anymore. He had a terrible season, so it's like
Yeah. Do you think Ty France is on this team next year?
I do. I don't think we're replacing him. Do you?
I think he'll be on this team. I think we will replace him though. I think he'll be the
Really?
backup first baseman slash DH type role next year.
So
I'll ask you another
who are we
question.
bringing in? Okay, yeah.
Um, I like Pete Alonso a lot. But I'll ask. That would be amazing. But probably not gonna do it. I'll ask another question, Levi. Do you think that this is the biggest offseason in the last 20 years for the Seattle Mariners?
No.
Okay.
No,
So
I don't.
I
And
would
here's
disagree with
why.
you. I would
And
disagree with
here's
you.
why.
I
Because
think this is crucial.
no,
Crucial.
because Drew, it was crucial that we make the playoffs after the tear down rebuild. And so the offseason, and it's weird because the offseason moves we made weren't amazing, but bringing in Robbie Ray and Suarez and Frazier, who was much better than Colton Wong was this year, and Jesse Winker, I think that was the most influential. I think the 2022 offseason was the most
No,
influential
I
because
disagree.
that's what got
But
us
no,
to the
because you have.
playoffs.
But that year, Julio Rodriguez was still finding his own. This year, go. So okay, this is what I
Julio's
look at.
still finding his own.
This is what
Man
I
was
look
only
at it.
good for 1 month this year.
Julio's a top 5 MVP candidate.
No. That's one of the biggest storylines in baseball that I absolutely despise.
Right, look at
There's
look at the
no
stats.
yeah.
Look at the
This
stats.
Kyle Tucker was better. Jordan Alvarez was better. Corey Seager was much better. Shohei was better. There's many players in the American League that were better than Julio this year.
Two 280 with like 30 homers and how many bags?
And how many times did he strike out with the bases loaded? I mean, you can't be the MVP when you're not clutch at all.
You look at his bases loaded numbers; they're not actually as bad as we both remember them. But yeah,
Well, JP Crawford, he's the guy with the bases loaded, 11 for 16. How about that?
yeah, that's crazy. I'll tell you why this is the most important
Okay.
offseason,
And then I'll rebut you with another point. But
most
let's hear it.
important offseason in Mariners history.
Wow.
Cal Raleigh
It's
comes
crazy.
Cal Raleigh comes out and says, "Look, guys, we need to get more big players in the off season." He just pretty much straight out says that. You remember hearing this? Do you hear his post game interview, Levi? I'm
Yes.
sure you
Yes.
did.
I heard the post game. I agree
JP
with him.
Crawford comes out and agrees with him. I think we can
Yeah.
both agree that JP Crawford and Cal Raleigh will be on the team next year. What
Yeah.
happens if we go into the offseason, no big moves are made, we miss the playoffs again next year? Do you really think guys like Cal Raleigh, JP Crawford, George Kirby, these really young, really young catalysts that make this team who it is. Do you think they'll stay? I don't. I think this
Yeah,
offseason,
that would be difficult.
I think what happens this offseason not just doesn't just matter for what happens this next year. It matters for those guys. It matters for JP Crawford, Cal Raleigh, George Kirby. Arguable if you think Bryce Miller's a future player there, Logan Gilbert, etc. Those are the guys that simply will not stay with the Seattle Mariners if nothing changes. This is the year for it to change. You have a bunch of young guys. You have a couple of older guys who are exiting their prime but are still super productive players. You could argue JP Crawford is over the hill. Obviously, he had his best year this year, but what? He's on the other side of 30. So this is the time to strike. And I could see it if we don't make a move in 4 years, we don't have anybody but Julio. Because obviously we locked up Julio for who knows how long.
Yeah.
So we have him locked up. But in 4 years, there is a good chance in my mind we are winning 65 baseball games without George Kirby, without Kyle Raleigh. We have another good farm system, and I think it's all because of this offseason. If Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander go out and make the same dumb excuse, oh, we like to grow from within. Oh, we don't have enough money to spend on these players. We want to make trades. This is a really good baseball player. He's super good at making contact, etc. I don't give I don't give a rat's ass about if he can make good contact. I want an elite player. I want an elite player. I want Shohei Ohtani. I want Pete Alonso. I want Fernando Tatis Jr. I want Juan Soto. And I know that makes me sound like a delusional fan, but other teams do that. We're 18th in payroll. We should not be 18th in payroll. We sell out stadiums every weekend. This team is raking in money for these owners, and they need to put the money where their mouth is, or this team will not be where it is in 2 or 3 years. And this is the most important deadline in Mariners history, in my opinion.
Drew, I understand the sentiment. There's the good news, though. There's two things. The good news is that there's three things, actually. The good news, we don't have only one more year to convince these guys to resign. They have at least 3 more years for everyone. I think maybe Gilbert has 2 until free agency. I think Kirby has 4. Cal has 3. JP has, I think, 3 still.
What if we miss playoffs back-to-back years?
Well, Well, that's what I'm saying. So the other thing, the market this offseason isn't great besides Shohei, who I think it would be a mistake to sign because he's old. He can't pitch anymore. We don't know if he'll ever pitch again. And as a DH, do we really need? I mean, why would you pay 40 million a year to a DH is insane. That's how team. That's what the Yankees pay their DHs.
And Mike Ford is the playoffs, not just the playoffs. It's the AL West.
Drew,
it's the AL West.
The Yankees are the type of team that pays a DH 40 million a year, and look where they are. They're worse than us. So you can't just say it's payroll because Baltimore
$40 million.
Baltimore
we have won the AL West this year. We have won the AL West.
Baltimore has the number 29 payroll, and they won 20 more games than us. Not 20, 14. They won 14 more games than us with a payroll that was half of the size of ours. So it's not all about payroll. But let me tell you the other thing. Seattle has the problem is there's not a great free agent market. So the way to improve, unless you're going to shell out all this money to Ohtani, which then prevents you from re-signing Gilbert, from re-signing Cal. If you give all that money to Shohei, you're not going to get those guys back either. So then you're going to be
3 years with all of
them.
So
then you're going to be the Shohei and Julio team with nobody else, which is not the recipe for long-term success. But we can't go around and trade any more of our guys. And I know people say you're like, Levi, why do you care about holding on to the prospects? We have holes right now, potential holes at first base, second base, third base, right field, left field, DH, as well as obviously that we always need more bullpen. So we have holes all throughout the lineup looming into the future. And we have guys like I would not trade any of these young shortstops right now. Cole Young looks really good. I would not trade him. I wouldn't trade Feldman.
Do it in a heartbeat for Pete Alonso.
I would not trade Feldman, Celeste. Pete Alonso only hits home runs. He's Teoscar, but a little bit better. I
We had Pete Alonso instead. We had Pete Alonso instead of Ty France. We win the L West this year.
that might not be the case.
No, I
Ty
don't
Fran
think that's
Ty's
debatable. I do not
Ty's
think that's
Ty's
debatable.
defense is miles ahead of Pete Alonso.
Levi,
What's the war? I mean, I'm gonna look up the war right now just to
look
prove
up
the
the
point.
difference between Ty France and Pete Alonso. I guarantee you it's 2 wins.
Pete Alonso this year 3.2 war. Ty France this year winds up with okay, never mind. Pete Alonso's a lot better.
What's Ty? Is he negative?
He's 0.7. So my point has
That's
been
literally the
proven
playoffs.
wrong.
That's the playoffs.
You're right. That is the playoffs. But again,
You
trading
trade.
all the
You're
future
telling me,
for why would you? I wouldn't trade all the future for Pete
You're
Alonso
telling
right
me
now.
you're an unproven shortstop. You wouldn't trade an unproven shortstop to win the AL West for the first time in 25 years, whatever
I
it is.
wouldn't because the future is so bright. Lazaro Montes. Have you heard Lazaro
The
Montes?
shortstop.
This
We
guy
traded Noel
is
Marte for,
and that was a mistake. Luis Castillo sold our season away. That is going to go down as one of Jerry DePoto's all-time worst trades.
Castillo
Castillo
was a
is
top 10 in Cy Young this
Castillo
year. Top
is
10.
32. He's
Top
already
10.
reached his peak, and he sold the season for us by pitching 2 of his worst career starts in a row against our division rivals. You can't do that.
He kept us afloat in the beginning of the year.
No,
Yes, he did.
disagree.
Yes, he did.
He was
Yes,
our
he
third
did.
best pitcher this year.
He's top 10 in Cy Young voting, Levi.
Yeah, I don't care.
He'll
Don't
finish
care.
top 10 in Cy Young voting.
Great. You know, Noelvi Marte is gonna be he's gonna be like a 5-time All-Star, and Castillo is.
Where would we be right now if we didn't have
now.
Luis Castillo? Where would we be?
We would have 85
We'd be starting
wins.
Brian Wu.
We would have 85 wins.
Tommy Malone. Who are we putting there?
We would have had somebody else. But the point is that trading your whole future for veteran
are we bringing back
guys?
Ichiro from the dugout? Like, what's the option here? Like, I don't understand. We are not even getting close without Luis Castillo.
But okay,
Noel Marte's a shortstop. Thank God, the one position, one of the 3 positions we actually are good on is shortstop.
Well, Marte's gonna end up being a third baseman, and he could have been our future. He could have been the next Kyle Seager, but it is what it is. So what I'm saying is trading your whole future away this offseason would be a mistake. It would, because then you're unable to re-sign half the guys in your core because you can't afford to pay them when you're
3
paying
guys
Pete
in the
Alonso.
first round. We just drafted 3 guys in the first round.
And we need to keep them. We need to keep Feldon Celestin. And we need to keep Montez. Lazaro's going to be the next Jordan Alvarez. This guy is hitting. He has 40 bomb potential. All those
guys are expendable.
No, I would not. The one guy, I'll tell you what we should do. Here's my take. I say this offseason, here's my plan for the offseason. Trade Jared Kelenic for a second baseman, a young second baseman. We need to get him off the team. He brings the vibes of the team. Drew,
you think Service benched him for attitude? You think Service benched him for attitude?
Yes, I do. Listen to this, Drew. My girlfriend worked at Cheney. She knows nothing about baseball. You know what her number one takeaway about the Rainiers was when she worked there? Her takeaway was that Jared Kelenic is a jerk. That was her number one takeaway. Even my girlfriend who knows nothing about baseball knows that Jared Kelenic has a bad attitude. When he was off the team, we were winning. He comes back. What do we do? 8-10 down the stretch, and Kelenic benched, completely benched. Service wouldn't play. Also, by the way, he didn't hit a home run since what day? June 9th.
When everyone else was struggling, it was Jared Kelenic who had 3 walks and a single.
Jared Kelenic in his career has
what
had
was
one
an on-base
good month.
percentage in the last 20 games? Probably damn near close to 500.
Jared, no, there's no way.
Let's look it up. So many times in the last 20 games.
Let's check the stats. Jared Kelenic had one good month in his career. And he has a bad attitude about baseball, and he brings the team down.
You're telling me
he broke his foot by kicking a cooler, Drew.
Yeah, I don't want that kind of guy because he cares about the team. He cares about the team.
In September,
Julio Rodriguez would just smile it off and talk about how much he likes the Dominican Republic. At least Jared Kelenic cares a little bit.
In September, I want to find the splits. I'm actually very curious to see this. Jared Kelenic walks away with 261 batting average, 370 on base percentage, 283 slugging, and a 653 OPS. September was his second worst OPS of the season. He walks away with
much.
in September. He walks away with 12 hits, 1 run scored, 1 double, 4 runs batted in, 1 stolen base, 14
How many games?
strikeouts in 15 games. So
So he's getting on base every game.
in July, he played 15 games as well. In July, he had 8 runs scored, 15 hits, 7 doubles, 10 runs batted in. He played the same amount in July and was much better. June, he was terrible. He hit 173 in June. And then May, he hit 250 with 3 home runs. Take away April, Jared Kelenic had an awful season. April, he was great. 7 doubles, 7 home runs, 14 runs batted in, 308 batting average. He's had 1 good month in his career, and he has a bad attitude. So I don't see why you would keep him on your team. I would trade him right now. This is the highest. This is the mark my words. This is the highest bad attitude according to anyone who's ever watched him play the game of baseball. Every time he strikes
your girlfriend or
every single time he strikes out, what does he do? He throws his helmet in the dugout and throws a temper tantrum. He's a baby.
So did everyone else in the Mariners down the stretch. Yes,
that's not true.
You saw Ty France, Julio.
Julio keeps his head high, and so does Suarez. You need guys who build a positive attitude.
Julio strikes out with the bases loaded and just smiles. I would rather have Jared Kelenic break his foot than that. That pisses me off. Pisses me off so much.
You need reliability. This is the highest Jared Kelenic's trade value is ever going to be, in my opinion. I would trade him now. I would trade him for a young second baseman. Do a swap him to the Cardinals for a young second baseman. There's going to be a team that wants him who can give us a young second baseman who can actually contribute. That's the first thing I would do. Second thing I would do is I would go and sign 2 new outfielders because I do not want Teoscar back. He strikes out way too much, and he is the most inconsistent player I've ever seen. So we're getting rid of Kelenic and Teoscar. We got to go sign 2 new outfielders. I would say one of them should be Cody Bellinger. Go get a star. He can also play first base to replace Ty. Well, he had a good season this year. He had a pretty good season this year. And then I would sign one more.
Let's get Tatis.
We can't. Tatis is on 11 years.
The Padres will trade Tatis.
No, they will not.
Yes, they will.
I don't think the Padres would do
that. I'd bet with you he's on a different team by the end of this offseason.
I disagree. And the thing is, trading for Soto, again, you can say all you want. Let's trade for Juan Soto. I wouldn't trade our entire future for 1 season of Juan Soto. Because Juan Soto, we're not going to re-sign him. Let's just be realistic. There's no way we're going to re-sign Juan Soto. He's not going to want to. Unless we win the World Series next year, which we won't because we're the Mariners. So I think
attitude, yeah. If we're not going to sign like Juan Soto,
in my opinion, the critical offseason will be 2024 when there's a better free agent market and when we know
the critical offseason. Yes.
Next year, we need our current players to improve and make the playoffs. I agree, but the market.
If we miss the playoffs again next year, all momentum gone, shot. J.P. Crawford and Cal Raleigh want to be off the team. Julio Rodriguez questions if he's even a superstar. George Kirby said George Kirby's gonna yell at Scott Service for leaving him out on the mound for too long every game. You know, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna go bad.
But that's what I'm saying. If we make the moves I'm telling you to make, if you go out and get Cody Bellinger and trade Kelenic for a second baseman.
We are close right now.
Yes, that's gonna get you to the playoffs. No, but you're not winning the World Series next year, no matter what, unless you're getting
the moves you're telling me to make are the very similar to getting Teoscar Hernandez and Colton Wong.
Except not because Teoscar Hernandez.
They are.
Nobody in their right mind should have thought Colton Wong was a good trade. That was a stupid trade.
Trading Hernandez was a better free agent. Did we trade? No, we signed him, right?
We traded Eric Swanson, which was, by the way, also ends up going to be a bad trade because Swanson's going to have more wins above replacement than Teoscar by the halfway through next season.
Teoscar Hernandez is a better trade candidate overall than Bellinger. You know,
disagree. Teoscar Hernandez is bad.
You think Teo after last year was worse than Bellinger after this year?
Let's look at those stats.
Look at Teoscar Hernandez. 2022 stats. 2022.
2022, he had 267 batting average, 25 home runs. This year, 258, 26. He was the same player. What was his wins above replacement last year? 2.8. This year, 2.1. Let's look at Cody Bellinger.
Okay, so there's a win right there. So now we made the playoffs. If Teo just does what he needs to do.
Well, it's half a win.
0.7. Let's round up.
Bellinger this year, Cody Bellinger, 4.4 wins above replacement.
Okay.
He's worth 2 more wins than Teoscar, and
All
he's
right.
more consistent. So that I
Okay.
would go out and get. But what I'm saying is, don't trade your whole future to go all in next year, because the candidates to be traded for, in my opinion, are not the greatest. I would
Yeah.
say this next
Shohei
season,
Ohtani and Juan Soto suck. They're terrible baseball players.
don't signing Shohei, you throw away your entire future. I'm sorry. That would
Not for
be a
the next three
mistake.
years. Not for the next 3 years.
Well, I don't think designated
Not for
hitter
3 years.
Shohei
Levi, I
puts
will
it over the
take three
top.
years of actual post, like not just postseason, World Series. We competition. We'd go into next offseason top 5 in World Series odds if we trade. If we sign Shohei Ohtani and get a couple more guys.
Yeah, I
I
mean
don't.
we were fifth in World Series odds 2 weeks ago. So without
Yeah,
Shohei Ohtani,
you and I both knew that was not gonna happen. Top
did
top.
we?
Yes.
There was a lot of
You dropped series to the Reds, the Mets.
before
You get
the
swept by
Dodgers
the
before
Dodgers.
the Dodgers series. There was experts predicting us to make the World Series because of how good our pitching staff was.
Yeah,
MLB,
if we get to the playoffs, I love our odds because we have three
yeah,
guys who are very good, but
exactly.
Bryce Miller and Wu could not get us there.
And I think they will improve. I would say though, the other guy who I do view as expendable is
Hancock.
Brian Wu.
Hancock.
And Hancock as well. But
Okay.
Brian Wu, the problem with Wu is that unless your plan is to move him to the bullpen, I don't think Brian Wu. Also, honestly, I think they're all expendable because they all have flaws in their game. Brian Wu
Miller
can't
too.
pitch more than 4 innings a game before imploding, and
And he can't pitch.
Bryce Miller only has one pitch that he can throw for an out, which is his fastball. So unless Brian Wu's gonna like strengthen
I
his
will say,
arm like by double, and Bryce Miller's gonna develop 2 more pitches, neither of them have a solidified spot. And
I would say
people
there's a good
acting like
chance
they're
Bryce Miller
amazing
comes
is
in with
not.
another pitch.
I hope he does. He should. He should.
Logan, the same thing happened with Logan Gilbert, and he came back and he had another pitch. He had like 3 more pitches.
But Gilbert already showed a lot more in his rookie season than Bryce Miller did.
Did he? Did
Yes.
he?
Yes.
I don't know.
Maybe not. I don't know. In my
I remember
opinion,
everyone having the very similar outlooks on Gilbert, saying he only has
in my
one pitch
opinion,
fastball.
Miller and Wu right now both profile to me as bullpen guys unless they can really up their game next year. So I would say give them both another year in the system and then decide which one you're going to trade.
I will say those guys
I
are
would be willing to trade
expendable.
Hancock this offseason. If we have to, I'd be willing to trade Hancock.
I'll tell you all the guys I'm willing to trade this offseason.
We've already heard it.
I'm willing to trade all 3 of those guys, right? I'm willing to trade. I am willing to trade Jared Kelenic at the right price. I'm willing to trade. I'm willing to trade guys like Cole Young. I'm willing to trade some of our other first round picks.
I would not trade Cole Young. I would be willing to trade one of our guys, one of our first rounders this year. But Cole Young looks like he's going to be really good. I'm not so sure about the guys we got this year though. So I would trade one of them.
I'm willing to trade some of our depth if someone wants it for, a Cade Marlowe, a Sam
Yeah,
Haggerty.
right. Drew, if any team calls about Sam Haggerty, he'd be gone in an instant. But I don't think anyone wants him.
You really like. I think we're on the same page about this. But like, I can't believe we thought this is not a postseason team when you have guys like at the end of the season must win games. You have Caballero, Mike Ford. Who else started?
Yes, we need to do a better job of getting depth. I agree.
Sam Haggerty, Ty France. Like that's your bottom 5. Like
I agree that we need depth and we do need to spend some money, but I don't think Shohei is the place to put the money. 40 million to a DH.
Shohei. Who's gonna sign him?
Let the Dodgers waste 40 million on him.
Waste.
It's a waste. Yes.
Waste.
40 million to a DH. The Yankees gave Giancarlo Stanton 40 million a year, and they haven't been close to a World Series since they made that
Shohei
deal.
is a different level than
Not anymore. Not anymore. Shohei could very well have already hit his peak. The dude, he's injured. He might never pitch again. it would be a mistake. I'm telling you, it
Dude,
wouldn't be a mistake.
Shohei is one of the most
It would not be a
underrated players
mistake.
I had ever seen in my entire life.
All he does is hit home runs and pitch, and he can't pitch anymore.
He's probably gonna win the MVP, and he hasn't played the last month, Levi.
Yeah, well, that's because he had a really good start to the season. I agree, but all he does is hit home runs.
What? He steals bags. He hits for average. He's gonna be able to pitch in a couple of years. Like, what do you mean? He's the exact opposite guy of all he can do is hit home runs. That is
Well,
not the guy to say that.
when he was coming off of
Mike
surgery,
Ford is the guy to say that. Which, by the
no,
way,
Mike Ford just can't hit. Mike Ford just can't hit.
and somehow he's still an improvement from our DH going into to this season. That's how sad it was.
But you can get a guy to play DH who can hit 30 home runs for you and not have to pay him 40 million for the next 8 seasons.
Yeah, you would think, wouldn't you? But then you throw guys like AJ Pollock and Tommy La Stella, and you realize it's harder than you think.
Let's go to the. I'm actually curious to see the home run stats this year, and we'll look for a guy who we could get for a much cheaper price than Shohei, because I don't think it's smart. So let's see. How about we go out and get?
You're the reason this team will never make the World
How
Series.
about we go out and see what the Braves want for a veteran Marcell Ozuna who hit 40 dingers this year. He could be very cheap. 40 dingers.
Yeah, after the Braves win the World Series, yeah.
How about we go out and sign JD Martinez, who hit 33 home runs for a $7 million price? He hit 33 home runs for the Dodgers.
I wanted JD Martinez last year.
I wanted him too.
But he's not going to be $7 million this year.
Well, he'll be like 11 million. He's still a veteran. And he hit 33. I think JD Martinez would be a fantastic player that we could sign.
I agree.
Let's look at some other names down here. You've got the Diamondbacks wouldn't give us Christian Walker, I bet. So that would not work. By the way, yeah, Teoscar's second on the team. Cal second on the team with 30. That's impressive. How about we call the A's and see what they want for Brent Rooker, who hit 30 home runs this year?
Probably one of our first round picks. Are you willing to give it up?
I would give up a first round pick for Brent Rooker, yeah.
All right.
How about we call Washington for Lane Thomas, a guy who, by the way, was available at the trade deadline. We didn't trade for him at the trade deadline.
I wanted him too.
Washington, 28 home runs for Lane Thomas this.
Sorry, guys, that happened. We don't have Zoom Premium, so if you want us to get Zoom Premium, subscribe down below so we can get monetized. That'd be great. But yeah, our apologies. But where were we, Levi?
I was making you a point, Drew, that there's lots of great players that we could potentially get for much less than it would cost to trade for Juan Soto or sign Shohei. And
there are reasons for that, and we will pay the price, Levi, if we go cheap once again, like we always do.
I don't think that's going cheap though. I don't think getting Brent Rooker, Lane Thomas, and JD Martinez would be going cheap.
If we can get
this offseason, our additions was a guy who has never hit more than 15 home runs in his career, a guy who has been an all-star once and hasn't been good in 5 seasons, and a guy who hasn't played a full healthy season since 2017, and a guy who literally has never played in the MLB, and Cooper Hummel, who was supposed to be the next Dylan Moore, a great utility player. The front office this season, either it was just completely stupid about who they brought in, or they just didn't care at all. Anyone could have told you that was going to fail. Anyone. Trading for if you were to bring in 3 guys who hit 25 plus home runs, that would be something. Colton Wong and AJ Pollock were not 25 home run hitters. Lane Thomas and Brent Rooker and JD Martinez are 25 home run hitters. That's the difference. And they're still at a similar cost level. That's the difference. I don't know.
I just think, Levi, there is a 0% chance that Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani fails, and there is a high percentage chance that one or all 3 of those guys could fail next year.
Long term, there's a chance. So, but let me tell you this, because I believe. So it sounds like you think next year we have to win. I would say
yes. If we don't win, we're screwed. Our entire inner molecular, like the entire inner circle of Cal Raleigh, JP Crawford, etc., will not be here in 3 years.
I think if we win, if we perform, even if we miss the playoffs next year, which I don't think we will, if we make the moves that I'm saying we should make, I don't think we'll make the playoffs. I don't think we'll miss the playoffs. I think we'll make it. But even if we miss the playoffs next year, I think if we make it in 25, it'll be okay. Which is why I am giving Dipoto and Service 2 years. That's the leash. You have 2 years to win the division, and if you don't win the division in 2 years, I don't care if you win. Do you see the interview today? 54%. 54% is not gonna cut it. Jared
Yeah.
Dipoto is. I don't know what he thinks he's helping his case, but he acts like he's smarter than everyone. He's like, oh yeah, well, the fans should be happy. We're actually doing them a service running the organization like this. Our goal is to win 54% of the time because realistically, that's how you're gonna make the. He's such a freaking nerd. And this is the thing. I looked through it. 54% is 88 wins. I did the math, and 88 wins is the amount of wins that we got this year. And did we make the playoffs? No. And what does 88 wins usually get you? 75% of the time, 88 wins gives you a wild card. You know how often you're going to win the division with 88 wins? Once every 10 years. You're going to win the division once every 10 years with 88 wins. That's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you want to hear some of the quotes that he's got? I don't
Yes.
I don't like them at all. This is Dipoto on Cal and JP's comments, which I 100% agree with. Really quickly, Levi, do you agree with them?
Yeah, I love the sentiment. The players want to get better players. I don't think Jose Caballero is sitting over here like, oh man, Cal Raleigh is he's such a bully for wanting to replace me. Like, no, there's like JP Crawford wants some more better relievers. Yeah, I'm sure that Dominic
Eduardo
Leone.
Bizzardo.
I'm sure Dominic Leone is quaking in his boots, like, oh no, JP wants to replace me with a better reliever. Like, no, that's what you need. You need better players.
Dipoto on JP and Cal. I don't know the solution to our problems are big name players, and I don't know we have big problems. Would I like big players? Sure, but it's not the only way to build a roster. So,
he's right that it's not the only way to build a roster because Jerry Dipoto, for better or for worse, he can point to the Orioles and say that's who we want to be. The problem is we started the rebuild before they did, and we were good before they were, and now they have surpassed us. So if he wants to point to Baltimore and say we want to be them, then what I'm saying is you have about 2 more years to prove that you can be them. Because right now, the Jerry Dipoto that I think he is the Jerry Dipoto that drafted Mike Trout to the Angels and then proceeded to make the playoffs once. He made the playoffs once with Mike Trout.
Let's play a little
is
game.
That going to be what Julio too? Yeah.
Let's play a little game. Tell me how much you agree with the following Jerry Dipoto quotes. So how much do you agree with that one?
I would say that one, I agree at 40%.
And you think that's what he should have said in that moment?
I think he should have been a little bit less attacking the players.
Okay. The next quote I got for you. This is the one that really stuck out to me, which I do not like at all. Dipoto. This season, as much as it was disappointing in the end, was a step forward for us. Sustainable roster, competing for championships year in and year out. Forward steps for our young players. Our challenge as a front office is to find a way to step forward. My initial reaction is you win less games and you're not in the playoffs. How is that a step forward?
No, it was a step backwards. It was, like I said, the front office made 4 of the dumbest preseason moves they could have made that anyone could have told you wasn't going to work out. And then they go and say, oh, well, it was a step forward because, Julio and Cal got slightly better in the month of August. So, really, Bryce Miller did play this season. So that's a step forward from last year when he was injured. Like, no, this is the 4th time in 10 seasons, the 3rd time with Jerry Dipoto. No, the 5th time in the past 10 seasons, and the 4th with Dipoto as our GM, that we have been eliminated from the playoffs in the final week of the season. 4 times with him as our GM. We've made the playoffs once. 4 times we've been eliminated the last week of the season. 1 time we were terrible.
You could give some credit there, honestly, but also some.
No, that's not credit because when you miss the playoffs in the last week,
I know, but
you should make it the next year.
5 years. Let me get into the next one. So how much do you agree with that?
I agree with that by 0%. It's not a step forward at all.
This one I actually agree with. He finally takes some accountability. This is Dipoto on if he regrets not adding more talent to the Mariners roster last offseason. Quote, it was a fail, period. And sure, I regret it, period. I wish I could go back
Oh,
and do it
wow.
over again. All you can do is just fix things as you move forward. I agree with this quote. He finally takes some accountability there. It was a fail. You didn't add enough talent, and he says it here. So, I would agree with this one.
Yes. Thank you, Depoto, for actually not being the egotistical baby that you usually are and taking some accountability. Would I like to see more? I feel like, look, Depoto, ultimately, he's not your GM, and he's also not the guy who's giving the go ahead to spend the money. So, as much as you can point the finger at Depoto only, and I do think Depoto has a lot of the blame, Justin Hollander is the GM. That's now his primary job is to make the trades and
Yeah.
sign the players. So
Speaking,
that's a failure on his part. And John Stanton's the one who gives him the money. And that's a failure on his part, too. I want to hear John Stanton come out and say, Mariners, I'm sorry for not letting us spend money. When I said 2 years ago, I promised you I would let you spend money. And then 2 years later, I told you can only spend money on AJ freaking Pollock.
yeah. Okay, let's run through the next couple of these because we are running out of time.
Yeah, what else
This
we got?
is this is Justin Hollander on the team's payroll status heading to the offseason. Quote, I think we have plenty of resources, both player resources as avenues to trade for players. And I think we have plenty of financial resources to build a championship level club. Agree with it?
I do. I agree with
Saying we
it.
have plenty of financial resources to build a championship level club. In my opinion, let's go do it then. This is now you've admitted to us we have the money, we have the players to trade up for other players. Let's go do it. What's stopping you? Come on, man. Let's get this train rolling.
Yeah, I agree. They need to get the train rolling. Unfortunately, they probably won't.
Probably not. Okay. I'll get another one here. Depoto said that adding to their starting pitching is quote unlikely but not impossible. End quote. What would you say about that?
Look, I mean, we do get Robbie Ray back next year, and I guess they're expecting Marco to be back and healthy. Um,
Hancock.
personally, personally, I think we should go out and get one more starter. It's just we see teams like the Dodgers who go into every single season. The Dodgers are like, well, I'm not sure who's going to be the fourth and fifth starter. There's like 7 or 8 or 9 guys competing in spring training to be on the Dodgers rotation every season. And what happens? All 9 of them end up pitching at least 5, 10 games in the season, and they all end up being decent. So the Mariners, we have to understand our pitchers are young, our pitchers are inexperienced, and half of our pitching staff, we don't know if they're going to be good. Like, who knows if Marco's going to be good? Who knows if Bryce Miller and Brian Wu take the next step? And I have
Yeah,
no
I
idea
agree.
about Emerson Hancock. So I look at it as we have 3 good pitchers, and hopefully when Robbie Ray, if he gets, so really we have 5 question marks. We have 3
Yeah.
solidified, and we have 5 question marks. How about we get a 4th solidified, and then those 5 question marks then that makes me feel a lot more comfortable. So I agree
Okay.
with that by 10%. Bad.
Last couple here. Depoto says that they've already decided what they are going to do in regards to Teoscar Hernandez becoming a free agent. He wouldn't state what it is exactly, and he's going to talk to his agent. This leads me to believe Teo's probably gone. You agree?
Yep, I agree with that one. Teo sucks. I don't want Teo. He's the
Okay.
most frustrating player I've ever watched.
This final one is by Scott Service, and this may be the dumbest quote of all of them, but I do 100% agree with him here. But it also may be the dumbest quote. Service, quote, in my mind, we are as good as the Rangers or Astros, except for a couple games behind. Yeah, well, no shit. We're a couple games worse than the Astros and the Rangers. We finished in the standings a couple games worse than the Astros and the Rangers. So, I mean, come on, Scott. Like, let's not we're telling the obvious here. Like,
Okay. I somewhat agree, but also I don't agree. He says
I
we're almost
100% agree.
no,
We
I
finished
disagree
2 games
because look
back.
at look at the All-Stars. Look at the All-Star team. The Mariners had how many All-Stars? 3.
Two,
3
3.
All-Stars
Yeah.
and 0 starters. The Rangers had 6 All-Stars, 4 starters,
And
and the Astros had 4 All-Stars, 1 starter. So they have better. star power, some of
Okay,
which
so you could
was
argue we had better overall depth than the Rangers. Look
no,
at their
you couldn't.
bullpen.
No,
The
yeah,
bull-
bullpen you could, but not rotational.
their
Their
bullpen is
their number 4
our
and 5
top three,
starters
and our
diced
top three
us
guys are
up.
better. Our top three guys are better.
Yeah, but their depths, their back end of the rotation diced us up. Jordan Montgomery, who they traded for at the deadline and is their number 3 starter, he shut us out twice this year.
I would say they're probably about a game better than us.
Andrew
Oh wait,
Heaney.
look, they are a game better than us.
Andrew Heaney eliminated us from the playoffs.
We played better than that. Not looking at head-to-head matchups against the Rangers, we're a better team than them this year. They had our number, and we
Yeah,
did
well, head to head they were, and that's why they're actually a better team.
Maybe they just matched up well against us.
If the Seahawks finish one game behind the 49ers and we lose to the 49ers twice and we have a better record,
different. You baseball
and
are not
and then
comparable
no,
here.
but this is what I'm saying. Seattle in that scenario, we would have had a better record against the rest of the league than the Niners, but we
Okay,
lose to
Levi,
them twice.
how many games are there in a football season?
17.
So if you finish a game behind in a 17-game season, or a game behind in what, 162?
Let's say this then. If Seattle and San Francisco tied for the division, but they beat us twice, who's better? The 49ers are still better, even though we had a better record against teams that aren't them. Because they beat us twice.
The 49ers are clearly, I don't even want to
The
get
Rangers were clearly better than us. They beat us 10 times this year, and we beat them 4.
So clearly, me and Levi, very frustrated.
If
We
you,
agree
if
on a
you're
lot
10
of
and
stuff.
4, you
We
can't go
disagree on a lot of
4-10
stuff.
against
We
Texas.
agree on a lot of stuff. We'll have more Mariners content out for you this
Yeah.
coming up. Yeah, I mean that's all I got. I think we said our piece for right now. We'll get more
It'll be
into
a long off season.
Yeah, the most important offseason in Mariners history, by the way. So yeah. See you guys later. Levi, you want to sign us off here?
Yeah, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe down below. Let us know what do you think the Mariners should do this offseason, and let us know how we can continue to improve our videos. We are so close to 500 subscribers. We are the 5th largest Mariners podcast according to Levi's research, in the entire world. So something tells me we're doing pretty good. But we want to keep this up because this is what we like to do. So
we're barely scratching the starting rotation, you know.
Yeah. Well, anyways, guys, thanks for watching NW Sportscast. We'll see you in the next one.